there's one movement that you're probably doing every day that can be affecting your lower back, can be affecting the movement of your hip joints, and that is so important, but so actually kind of challenging. This little lesson is going to cover what this movement is, how to make sure we're doing it in ways that feel supportive and safe for our bodies so that we can do the things we love with less back pain and more ease. I'm Bree Johnson of Heart and Bones Yoga, and Heart and Bones Yoga is here to help you feel amazing in your body, to know about your body and movement better. Our global community around the world moves with love in so many different ways, and I invite you to do the same with me. So like, subscribe, do all the usual things, and then let's get into this. What's this magical movement that we're doing every day that we may not be doing it as well as we could? And I don't want to get into any fear mongering or anything like that. It's just contextualizing for us that our postural habits, these things that we do every single day, really do and can affect us. And it's just a little bit of knowledge that goes a long way, which is what you're getting in this video, of course. So what that movement is a forward bend or a hip hinge. The hip hinge is the root foundational movement of a forward bend. And then when I say forward bend too, it's not talking just about a forward bend that we do in a yoga class, but the forward bend when you go and pick something down off the ground, when you pick your laundry basket up, and really it's something you do a lot. So how do we do it better? And your torso is your center of your mass. That's the weight, the majority of the weight of your body, and it's held, I'm being very simplistic here, but it's held in your pelvis. And your legs are here to help move all that mass around. So if you want to bend your torso, most of the weight of your body, in any sort of way, you want to make sure that your legs and your pelvis are helping to move that rather than your lumbar spine, your lower back and upper back kind of carrying most of that as we do it. Now, of course, all movement is good movement, and I'm not saying you should never flex the spine, but for the most part, it's super helpful to learn this hip hinge, especially if you want to start lifting heavier things, like adding weightlifting into your life, like deadlifts, for example. But hey, even if you're not deadlifting, you probably have small kids, you probably have a laundry basket, you have these things that you are going to be lifting, and learning how to hinge is key. But how does it make sense in your body? Now, in my experience, I've been teaching for 20 something years. I have been teaching yoga teachers to teach yoga and teach people, regular people, to do this hip hinge. And something that I found super fascinating, it's pretty common, even for super experienced movers like yoga teachers, to not truly understand the nuance or the subtlety of that hip hinge. How do we move our pelvis? And if you're a hypermobile person, you might find that it's even harder to be able to find that. So yes, you can bend, but what does it feel like to hip hinge and bend with strength and stability in your legs? We're going to go through a couple different steps, and these steps I find super helpful, and we're going to be layering somatic and movement awareness. We're going to be layering different techniques for you to really know and embody what it feels like to go, oh, that's a hip hinge. And so you're going to come to a wall, and if you don't quite have a wall, that's okay. You can use the back of a closed door, or you can imagine that you've got a wall behind you. You could even grab a chair, something for your brain to move back towards. So let's pretend that we've got the wall here, because I want you to see me from the side. And then we'll place our hands and try to find the bones of our pelvis. And there might be different amounts of flesh in the way, so it might be harder to try to find those bones, and that's perfectly okay. Think about from just very, like, picturing the femur bone, your thigh bone here, and then that's right in the center of your thigh, and then it's traveling up, and that's going to be about where the front of the pelvis is. Now, with your hands there as guides, let's bend our knees a bit. And then from bending our knees, we're going to not just thinking about bending forward. What we actually want to think about is sending your butt back. So do that a few times. So what happens with your knees slightly bent when you try to send your butt to the wall or to the chair or anything behind you, and then send your pelvis, your butt, forward? Okay, send your butt back and then forward. Nice. Now let's go another way. So think about tilting your pelvis down. and then coming back up. So the front of the pelvis, imagine it like a little bowl, and that it's got some water in it, and that you want to just gently spill and tilt that water out, and then bring the pelvis bowl back up. I'm offering you 2 different ways to do this because we're all different and different cues are going to land in different ways. So that's your hip hinge, my friends. So again, as we tilt our pelvis back or send our sit bones back, let's just pause here. And notice that we're not going all the way to the floor. I didn't tell you to now bring your head to your knees. That's irrelevant. You don't need to do that. What we're trying to do is just anchor and get a sense in our body what it feels like to be hip hinged. Now, some of us might feel lower back right away. So if you're doing this and you're like, whoa, how come I feel this in my lower back? Then what you're going to want to do, those who aren't feeling anything in your low back, ignore this cue. Think about not tucking your tailbone. We don't want it rounded, but you may be overarching in your low back. So maybe for you, if you're feeling this in your lower back, think about lengthening your tailbone away. Not tucked, but maybe a little bit down. That might take the cue or take the low back pain right away. If that's the case, yay. If you're still feeling lower back pain, you might be really getting your ribs thrust forward. So now, keep feeling like your tailbone's lengthening. Exhale and bring your ribs, front of your ribs down and into your body. And then come back up. So those were cues for some of us who are going to feel this right away in your lower back, because yes, you've got your hip hinge, yay, but wait, I thought it was supposed to help my lower back, right? This video is all about supporting my lower back by doing a hip hinge and my lower back hurts. But pretty much most of the time, getting that tailbone back ribs in combo means that you're just aligning your pelvis, ribs in a safer space, more support from the core, more support from the legs. So that's our first step. Maybe that made sense. I hope that if you get nothing else from this video, the fact that you go, oh, okay, send my butt back. Or, oh yeah, my pelvis is a bowl of water and I'm tilting it out. Both cues achieve the same, hopefully, results. And having the knees bent just makes it a lot more functional for most of us. Now let's add on to that so that this makes even more sense. We're going to grab a dowel or a broom handle. I'm pretty sure most of us all have a broom handle in our life. So let's take that and you're going to take it to the center of your spine. Can I truly hinge at my hips and keep my upper body neutral? I like to have my other hand at the back of my head, keep it glued, and then send my sit bones back without changing any other part of your body. Some of us, as we do this, we might notice that the head wants to come off, or we might find that the back of the ribs that are touching the pole here, that wants to move. So can you send your sit bones back while keeping all those parts of your back, whatever parts of your back that are touching the dowel, on the dowel? So this is beautiful. This is a really eye-opening experiment and way to really see, can I just hinge? So I'm hinging just at my pelvis. My whole torso is following that hinge of the pelvis. Okay, so you do that a few times. It's a great learning tool. Let me know in the comments if you did this and it was very eye-opening and you realized, oh wait, my upper back wanted to do this and help out. Now we're going to do another version here, and this is a nice one. This is kind of an extra brain click on movement that I really love, a light bulb movement for a lot of us. And so you're going to go to your wall. If you don't have a wall, use the back of a closed door, and then place your other foot at the wall. And then you're going to bend back. Now I might have put my foot a little bit too close, so I'm going to step my foot a little bit more forward, which means I'm getting closer to a foot apart-ish. This is going to be different for each of us. Other foot. So you don't want to just let the pelvis pop out like this. You want to keep your pelvis in. You want to gently be pressing this foot into the wall and standing leg strong, and then send your butt back. It doesn't have to touch the wall, but you can send it back and then move your pelvis, move your butt forward to come out and back to come in. And you do that a few times, really feeling, what does that feel like? Lots of work, lots of goodness. Now, what's great about this movement is that it's a hip hinge, but now you're kind of doing it on one leg. Yes, this foot is active and doing something, but you were really asking this standing leg to do a lot. Let's try that to the other leg. Oh, hello, standing leg. Watch the temptation to pop your hip out. You want to stay strong, and then again, think about, if that helps, if you want to add more things in your brain, think about with that dowel behind you and send your pelvis back, butt forward. Always think about leading with those strong glutes. Those are your butt muscles. So those strong glutes pointing you back towards the wall, and then those strong glutes pointing and moving you away from the wall. Back and forth. Noticing, is it harder on one side? Or did this click? Did this give you a light bulb moment of, oh, okay, hip hinge. Beautiful work. Now let's add one more. This is another addition if balancing feels okay for you. Because getting strong and functional on both legs is great, but getting strong and functional on one leg is fabulous and important too. Now, we can have a chair here for extra support and balance. Always a great idea, because we're going to try to do a couple layers of this. First layer, you can use the chair or not, and then have just the tiptoes on the floor. So just the tiptoes on the floor, foot behind you, feet about pelvis width apart, and then you're going to, same thing, and you can be a little bit bent, but send your pelvis back. Send the pelvis back. Watch my lower back, people. If you're feeling this in your lower back, watch that you're not overarching your lumbar, so you're not sticking your butt out and up too much and the ribs flaring forward. Keep ribs down, keep lengthening tailbone back. So trying that, maybe that feels okay. Maybe you want to try it on the one leg. So think about, again, do not let your hip pop out. It's this type of position. We want to go, what I like to say, shloop. You kind of suck that outer hip in, and then hinge and send your pelvis back. Ooh, that's a little interesting, isn't it? Maybe that kicked on some muscles a little bit more. So by all means, please use the chair, your wall, for a little bit of extra balance, until you feel, if and when you ever feel okay to try it on one leg. Now in yoga, this is a really common movement. If you want to go into something like Warrior 3 and any of our balancing poses, these hinging one-legged movements are so great. Okay, so going through that, you can do this on your own more often. This is more of a tutorial move and learn experience. Let's try it on the other leg. Phase 1 is top of your toes, toes tucked, just lightly on the ground for that extra bit of balance. Standing hip, outer hip in, and then send your sit bones back. And then send them forward. And when I say sit bones, ignore that cue actually. I'm going to change that as we speak. I like thinking, it's actually more effective thinking about both butt cheeks, moving back and then moving forward. Good. That's what's driving you back, as if you're trying to touch an imaginary wall, and then forward. If that feels okay for your balance and you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, take your foot off, use your support, the wall, a chair. Okay, so again, reminder, you might feel fatigue in your lower back. So of course, this is so important and strengthening for your lower back to do, but keep in mind that when you're strengthening the lower back, you're asking your hips and your body to move in ways that you may not be as common or comfortable in doing. Okay, now, how do I go down? We got the hip hinge movement. How do I turn this into a forward bend? How do I turn this into picking something off the ground? Glad you asked. Let's try that. So one of the first things that we want to think about is just bending the knees, initiating. The key with everything, whether in your yoga class or everyday life, think about initiating the movement from your pelvis. And then when your hamstrings say, yeah, I can't go anymore, then you can let the rest of your spine curve down. So this is actually what my forward bend tends to look like nowadays. It used to look like me trying to get my head to my knees with my legs super straight. Don't recommend that. You don't need to do that. We understand biomechanics and movement better. We want functional movement. So the functional movement version of a forward bend may not look as Instagram pretty, but your lower back and whole body are happier, which means you hinge, as we talked about, send your butt back, and then when you feel like you can't go back anymore, then keeping your legs and feet pressing into the floor, then you can let the rest of your spine curl down. So there's this lovely balance between strong, stable legs, support, and then the rest of your spine in a nice relaxed flexion. And then to come up, you can take your hands onto your pelvis, keep the feet pressing down, and think about, as you lift your spine up, leading most of that movement, initiating it from your butt, your strong glutes. Okay, so that's kind of how the quick version of how we do that in a yoga class. The key here now is to do it in our everyday life. I gotta pick that laundry basket up. I gotta pick up that heavy bag of groceries. So think about same principles. Hinge from your pelvis. And then here you might want to bend your knees a little bit more so that we're not rounding as much, right? We still want to have some stability through the upper body. And then pick up whatever it is you need to pick up. Press your feet through the floor as you come up, and then go about your day. But feel confident knowing that, hey, at least if I've initiated this movement from my pelvis, I'm already kicking on those strong muscles in the back of my legs. The posterior chain of my body is solid, and my core is helping me lift this heavy thing without having to hurt my back too much. Lots to cover, lots to talk about. The main thing, my friends, is to keep thinking about hip hinging. This is your homework for the rest of your life now until it's embodied and familiar in your body. And even then, keep thinking about it because it's such a foundational movement. So keep practicing. Don't give up right away if it doesn't make sense. Use the dowel, use the wall. Just keep doing it. It's a movement pattern. Movement patterns don't always show up in our bodies right away. We have to train our mind and our nervous system to understand what we're asking it to do. Okay, if this was helpful, let me know in the comments. Happy hip hinging, my friends. Have fun applying it into your yoga practice. If you want to see more tutorials like this and more classes, how does this hip hinge show up in a yoga class? How do I teach it if you're a yoga teacher? Heart and Bones Online Studio is your place. Go try it out with our free 7-day trial. See if it works for you. See how we put this hinging action into an everyday yoga class where there's a lot less instruction and talking like this move and learn class. So I hope that helps you out. See you inside Heart and Bones, and see you in the next videos.